Three questions, Minister, and I'll have you respond to them at the end just to give you some time for that. I am going to ask some questions about the Middle East, and I'm going to start with our arms sales and the arms sales to Israel. And what I want to ask, I mean, I've asked order paper questions, been given very substandard responses. I know the media is very frustrated. They're getting different answers at different times. So I guess very clearly, and this is the first question, is Canada and has Canada been sending arms, whether it is military or non-military, whether it is technology, whether it's lethal or non-lethal, whether it is dual use to Israel? So that's the first question. And the reason I'm asking that question is because with the ICJ investigation that says there is a plausible case of genocide happening, Canada could be complicit. I'm concerned that Canada could be complicit in a genocide if we are continuing to sell arms. The second one that I wanted to ask you about, you know, CBC reported today, I think I've been very clear that I was horrified by your government's decision to defund UNRWA. Absolutely horrified. We know it is the only organization that can get life-saving support to innocent children in Gaza. We know that. That's very clear. Your decision was made, it's now being reported by CBC, with no information. The Canadian officials had no information when they made that decision, and it was simply on the word of information you received from Israel. So I have deep concerns about that, and if you could talk a little bit about how you justify that and when we can expect that pause to be lifted so that the innocent children in Gaza aren't the ones that are suffering from the terrorist actions of Hamas. And that does bring me to Hamas. And I have to say, I was happy.
If I may, if the members could attempt at least to demonstrate that the questions they're asking are somewhat relevant to Canada's diplomatic capacity
Absolutely.
or the machinery of government
So
of GAC, that would be much appreciated.
So today, or yesterday, we learned that Hamas was being sanctioned. And of course, we're happy that that happened. Hamas is a terrorist organization. They are responsible for untold suffering for Israeli and Palestinian people. However, what we didn't see was the same sort of action on some of the very genocidal comments we've heard out of the very far-right Netanyahu government. You know, I'm going to tell you, the Minister of Defense called Palestinians human animals. The Minister of Agriculture stated we are now actually rolling out the Gaza Nakba. The Minister of National Security likened Gazan civilians to terrorists, saying that they should also be destroyed. The Minister of Heritage argued against providing humanitarian aid to Gaza, saying there is no such a thing as uninvolved civilians in Gaza. The Minister of Finance said we need to deal a blow that hasn't been seen in 50 years.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to intervene. If you could please try to make it relevant to the topic at hand, it would be
With all due respect, how we respond to other government officials is diplomatic. How we choose to sanction other government officials is a key diplomatic role of this government, and that is a very, very reasonable question to ask the government.
MP McPherson, that relevance is an elastic term, but let's try to frame it.
Yeah, absolutely, and I can certainly bring forward some, you know, I just received a letter from the minister today for a letter I wrote to her in October that talks about the fact that diplomacy will help us with arms sales to Saudi Arabia. I can submit that if you'd like. It is clearly diplomatic. Thank you. So my concern is when we have people like this making these claims, saying these things about innocent civilians, absolutely, we need to sanction Hamas. When are you going to be sanctioning these government officials?
Okay, thank you. Well, first, Heather, I know you've been to the region, and I was in the region as well. And what is happening in Gaza is absolutely catastrophic. It's the worst place on earth to live right now. And I think Canadians know that. It is a heartbreaking situation, and meanwhile, we absolutely believe that when it comes to the ICJ, to answer your question, we respect the court, and parties need to make sure that they abide by the decision.
And Minister, that wasn't my question.
I'm sorry, Heather, I'll just continue. And I've raised this issue with my counterpart because we all agree that more humanitarian aid needs to go into Gaza. We all agree that the violence must stop. We all agree that we need to get to a hostage deal, which will eventually lead to a sustainable ceasefire, which will eventually lead, we hope, to a two-state solution. This has been Canada's position, and I hope that that's the case around this table. and in the House of Commons with all parties. Now, on the question of UNRWA, I agree that we need to provide humanitarian aid. We all do. There's an important investigation happening right now at the UN. My former colleague, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs of France, Catherine Colonna, has been appointed. It is an important investigation because the allegations are serious. And that being said, we absolutely, meanwhile, need to continue to provide humanitarian aid through different organizations, and the Minister of International Development is in charge of that. Now, when it comes to arms, because you asked me that question, so you and I and all of us know about our arms trade system. We have one of the most robust in the world. And what I can tell you is, of course, and for those who are watching, how it works is Canadian companies come to see the government to have export permits emitted. So it's not the Canadian government sending weapons. It's actually companies coming to see us. What I can tell you is that there's been no weapons sent under my watch and in recent years, and none since October 7th.
But I did ask about non-military.
I'll just continue.
Minister, if I could ask that you conclude your response in 20 seconds.
Yes, and we have sent, since October 7th, non-lethal equipment, including night vision goggles and protective gears, and that was through Canadian companies sending them to Canadian companies, Israeli companies in Israel.
Thank you.